Hello, VC! Dave, the pickup artist, with you this afternoon or this evening. And last weekend was HamCation, Orlando HamCation. It's the second largest amateur radio convention in the country. Great place to meet up with other ham radio operators and pick up radio equipment, antennas, power supplies, and it's just a huge event. And there's also a like a flea market, huge flea market. Everybody's selling everything, and you can also find vinyl records there. And this trip was no exception. I found a few records. I think they were all about $1. And I think they were all pretty good. So let's get started. The first one on my list is, I never had this one, David Gilmour's About Face. This is 1984, couple years after their the Pink Floyd's Final Cut debacle. And this is okay. It's got a little bit of 80s-itis to it, but David Gilmour sounds good. Great guitar solos in here. A lot of free, a lot of kind of just new agey guitar work, a little bit of new agey stuff. And we've got some guest stars. Steve Winwood pops up on piano and organ. And it also says on here that John Lord plays synthesizers. I believe it's the same John Lord as Deep Purple. This is around the same time that they were doing, Deep Purple was doing their comeback album, Perfect Strangers. So I think John Lord just dropped by to help David Gilmour wrap this up. And at the time, David Gilmour was also working a lot with Pete Townshend. Pete Townshend contributes 2 lyrics to this album, and David Gilmour played on a lot of Pete Townshend's 80s albums. So yeah, I'm glad to have this. I don't think it's as good as his 78 solo album, but it's okay. Next we've got, I didn't know this existed, Johnny Rivers, Sorry About the Glare, with the shrink wrap. Whiskey A Go-Go Revisited. What this is I think this is the third in a series of the Whiskey A Go-Go albums. The first one was a popular one that had several hits on it. This is, I'm not sure when it was recorded, but this was released in '67. Side 1 is a bunch of covers, usually Hard Day's Night. He covers that. And on side 2, we've got Johnny on a jamming mood. He does a track called John Lee Hooker. That's about a 16-minute jam on here. So yeah, this is really good. I liked it. Great guitar work on side 2 on the jam. But yeah, I like it. I like to pick up Johnny Rivers. He was going through some changes back in the late 60s. He switched from like pop to psych, and I think he went back to pop eventually. But I'm glad to have this. Sounds really good. Perfect condition. I don't see that often. Next one I used to have this album back when I was in high school. It went in, I don't know, I went in the Navy, and there was basically there was a garage sale. We'll leave it at that. But Classic Yes, 1982. This was just after they released the album Drama. But this has nothing to do with that. This is a compilation album. And I wanted to find out what the deal was, so I listened to it, and I also read the liner notes as usual. And these tracks were compiled by Chris Squire, the bass player, great bass player, who also owned the rights to Yes. And basically the tracks are all tracks that are have the great bass runs on them. And one of the tracks is called The Fish, which was Squire's nickname because he spent a lot of time in the bathtub, according to the members of Yes used to always live together. They lived together in the same house for a couple of years in the 60s, and they could never get Chris Squire out of the bathtub. But yeah, it's got Heart of the Sunrise, Wonder Stories, Yours Is No Disgrace, Starship Trooper, Long Distance Runaround, The Fish, and You and I. And in '82, some of the pressings included a 45 of, I believe it was Roundabout. The single version of Roundabout was included on it. And I think the first pressings in '82 included the 45. This does not have that. I did have that though, and that was very cool. But yeah, so I picked a good condition, so hopefully I'll upgrade it and include the 45, but I'm glad to have this nonetheless. Every track on that is good. Among other things, I find oddities at these ham radio festivals. One time I found a voting booth that was from the 2000 Florida elections, the famous 2000 Florida elections. It was the fold-up things. This guy had about 50 of these, so I bought one for like, I don't know, $10 or something just to have. Got set up over here in the, this is a psychedelic Radio Shack we're out in. Next album I've got, this is an upgrade, Santana, Moonflower. I have this, but this is in a lot better condition in the original shrink wrap with the original sticker on it. This is half live, half studio. And usually when bands did this, they'd have one album that was live and the other album that was the studio album. And this is a little different. All the studio and live tracks are put together and just randomly. So you'll hear a studio track and a live track, but it's very good. The live tracks were recorded in Europe, and this has an inner sleeve, but I've got the shrink wrap on it. Basically, the inner sleeve is basically the same as the outer cover, with a poem by what was then Carlos Santana's spiritual advisor. This was around the time that Carlos and John McLaughlin had this spiritual advisor. They had to cut their hair and wear white clothes, and but this is a fantastic album. And also, along with that, I found this is an upgrade copy of their first album that I got. Everybody knows this album. Everybody has it. I'm showing it in one of my favorite album covers of all time, the Psychedelic Lion cover. Look at that. I could never get enough of that cover. So yeah, I picked this up. I think this is better than the copy that I have already. One thing you may not know is on the first album, they had, Carlos had 3 percussionists, including Michael Shreve, who went on to do, be in several, he was definitely on the first 3 along with Greg Raleigh and Carlos. And they recently, about 10 years ago, Raleigh, Carlos, Shreve, and Neil Sean got together and they put out Santana 4, which is basically a continuation of their first 3 albums. So, and that was a pretty good album. They tried to get back to basics and use some of that vintage gear. It's worth checking out. But yeah, you definitely have to check this one out. This is the best one. Finally, I did not get this at the HamCation. This is a pickup from my collection. Just going through my collection as I usually do, and I find interesting stuff that I'm thinking, how did I get this? And I don't know how I ended up with this, but this is very cool. Jimi Hendrix, the Jimi Hendrix concerts. This came out in 82 also. This is a collection of tracks taken from 6 different venues: Winterland, Royal Albert Hall, Berkeley, New York, and I don't know what the other ones are, but track listing is really good. A lot of these tracks he didn't do live a lot, like Fire and Hey Joe. He does a version of Hey Joe at a Berkeley venue, and you don't hear him do Hey Joe live that often. But this is very cool. It's on Reprise. You've got the sleeve. The sleeve is the same for both records. This is 2 record set. And you also got info on here on the other releases. I think these are all on Reprise. You've got that Otis Redding and Jimmy set and Crash Landing. Like I said, it's on Reprise. Very cool. Nice. Sounds great. I do not know how I ended up with this in my collection, but I'm glad I have it. Information on the shows. A little bit of information on the artist that did the cover, the album cover. Nice album cover. So yeah, I put this on a couple days ago. I think I'm going to listen to it again tonight. It's very good. Love it. And yeah, that was a HamCation. Had a real good time. And hope everybody is well in the VC community. And I will see you again next week. This is Dave, the Pickup Artist. Take care, y'all.